Welcome, everyone. I am so honored to be here and see some of you that might see me only behind the screen. So now you can see me on the stage. I want us to welcome on stage singer, songwriter, actress, and dancer with over 14 million followers, Montana Tucker. Nickelodeon's Big Time Rush actress, singer, and dancer with almost 10 million followers, James Maslow. Vice President of Global Marketing at Taglit Birthright Israel, Noa Bauer. And former Israeli government spokesperson and founder of New Israeli Discourse Initiative, Eylon Levy. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for joining us. So, Noah, I would like to start with you. How have you seen Taglit Birthright Israel role evolve in the battle over global public opinion since October 7th?
So since October 7th, I think everything has been on steroids, and I think that we've realized very quickly that our biggest asset is the huge network that we've built over 25 years. And on October 8th, we send all of our alumni a message, call your Israeli friends, because all Birthright Israel trips have Israelis on them. And on October 9th, we send all of our alumni a message, share a photo of you in Israel to show solidarity. And we saw 125,000 photos within 24 hours. That's about 200 million eyeballs, not including people with millions of followers. So really counting on the alumni community.
So Montana, you also visited Israel for the first time in your early 20s. How did your pro-Israel activism start? How did that begin?
Yes, so I visited Israel for the first time on Birthright, actually. The best of the best. That trip for sure changed my entire life. I don't think I ever would have known that I would be an activist from that trip, but it definitely brought me so much closer to my Jewish identity. I come from Holocaust survivor grandparents, and they always told me the importance of the state of Israel for every Jew around the world. So when I got to go there and really experience it firsthand, I understood what that truly meant. And fast forward to now 10 years later, after the first time I went to Israel, it's been an incredible experience. And I actually, I got an award for Combat Anti-Semitism movement for my activism work, and my mom actually surprised me with my rabbi from my Birthright trip that I hadn't seen since Birthright to present the award to me. So it was very, very special.
So, James, you visited Israel shortly after October 7th, while Israel was still attacked daily by missiles from Hamas. You decided to visit the sites and speak with the survivors. What were your impressions?
I went over there shortly after because I saw a huge shift in the narrative a mere days after October 7th. If we can all recall back to even the news and how the news and then our friends and our family reacted to October 7th, there seemed to be a consensus that something horrific had just happened. For just a moment, for the first few days, I recall that everybody seemed to understand and have some sort of empathy and compassion. But then it was a mere matter of days later that just changed. It shifted. It started slipping away from that to something grotesque, something that didn't make sense. This justification, this denial. I could go on, but I decided at that moment that I need to go over there and check on my friends who were messaging me from bunkers with their children surrounding them with a single pistol if they had access to one, and in many of these situations with their husbands and my friends having gone off to war. I decided I wanted to go over there to see what was going on with my own eyes, to understand, to ask as many questions as possible, and I did end up making a documentary about it. We didn't plan on it. It's posted on my YouTube. It's simply a string of conversations from survivors, from people who had protected Becharit and Faraza, to the Nova Festival, to Muslim zakas working in Israel with Israelis and Jews and supporting the beautiful side of Islam really is questions about what is going on, what's happened, what is right, what is wrong. And I came back with one of the hardest weeks of my life, but also one of the most beautiful and joyous weeks of my life, and just a deeper love and appreciation for Israel.
Thank you. So, Eylon, you have the insider experience. What strategies you found that are most effective online countering misinformation about Israel?
First of all, I feel a little bit embarrassed to be on a panel here about things online because between Montana and James, my following is barely a rounding error. So I think there's been a mistake here. The core realization is this. This is on us. And we see here influencers who after October 7th looked around and went, wait a minute. We're the adults in the room. We're the ones with the following. If we are not going to do it, no one else is going to. That was the main realization after October 7th that drove me when I took on this role and started running ahead. And since I was forced to resign as a government spokesman, I set up what we're calling the Israeli Citizen Spokesperson's Office, which is a platform that we are building for all of you here in the room. We are, and please follow, we create content that is deliberately designed to give you the words and the messages and the sound bites we need, because I know that so many people in the diaspora feel they want to help, they want to support, but they don't quite know what to say. So we're investing the thought in the strategic messaging so that you watch the content and know what to say. Maybe the information war, the online social media war isn't something we can win, but it is not a war we can afford to lose. And therefore, it is not a war that we can afford to not even fight. And there is so much untapped potential, so much untapped power in this room and in our communities from people who know what the right thing is, but are scared to do it. They feel intimidated, and they have to understand what the costs are going to be. If we allow the lies and the hatred to go unchallenged, it's only going to be worse. The good news is there is no such thing as being a non-influencer. You don't need a fancy studio. You don't need a multi-$1,000 budget. Everyone has in the palm of their hand a device that helps them connect with the rest of the world. And I've found that as much as with the Citizen Spokesperson's Office, we try to produce content that looks official with a suit and tie and flag, the most effective stuff is the most authentic and spontaneous that's filmed in one shot here, visiting Kfar Aza. Shortly after the massacre, I just went and recorded things in one take and put them online. People like authenticity. And so people need to hear what is happening to you and happening to your families and happening to your friends. Share their stories, say how it is affecting you, and do not allow the other side to pretend that they are the only people who own the streets. Because by continuing to fight online, sharing your own authentic experiences, knowing how to say the messages in the shortest, snappiest ways, you are at least buying the benefit of the doubt for a country that is absolutely on the right side of history, fighting for our lives in a war against the Iranian regime and its proxy armies on 7 fronts.
Thank you, Eylon. So, now, as a young journalist, 18, I've been covering Birthright for so many years, almost half of my life. Is this always been part of Birthright kind of challenge or goals shaping public opinion about Israel?
I don't think it's a goal, I think it's a result. I think the goal of Birthright Israel is strengthening Jewish identity and connection with Israel and Israelis, most importantly. And I think that bringing people to Israel and knowing the people, and James also came to Israel for the first time through Birthright, and when his friends called him, he came after October 7th. I think that's the biggest goal. And we are shaping the global opinion because we have hundreds of thousands of people that came to Israel and have connection to Israel, and that's a result of what we do.
So, thank you. So, Montana, you have 14 million followers. I don't know if we're, up to date, like with the latest.
14 million across platforms.
So you get a lot of haters. I guess that is not easy. A lot of toxicity online. How do you deal with that? How do you cope with that? And what kind of tip do you have? We have a lot of college students here. There's something that they do. Some people would not want to get involved because they're thinking about the comments and reactions that they're going to get. So what is your tip and how do you handle that?
Yeah, so I built my platforms on music and dance. And my name is Montana Tucker. I know it's not the most Jewish sounding name, whatever that means, because Jewish sounds many different ways and looks many different ways. But many people didn't know I was Jewish. Not because I was trying to hide it, just because I built my platforms on dancing and on music. So when I did my Holocaust educational series over 2 years ago, that was the first time my followers really found out that I was Jewish and that my grandparents were Holocaust survivors. And I made the series, each episode was only 1.5 to 2.5 minutes, so that each episode could be shared easily. It was made for the Gen Z population. My following at the time was solely Gen Z. And Holocaust education isn't forced to be taught in every state in the US, as we know, and around the world. So a lot of my followers generally never heard about the Holocaust before, which is crazy to all of us in this room, because everyone in here knows every detail about the Holocaust. But that was the first time my followers found out. And of course I got hate during that time. And since then, from when I released the series up until October 7th, I was using my platforms to combat anti-Semitism and all forms of hate with music and with dance. And then when October 7th happened, it was, I think everyone in this room probably felt the same. I felt sick to my stomach. I couldn't even look out my window and enjoy my view, knowing that this is going on in Israel. And I knew that this was my turn to step up. And my grandparents, during the Holocaust, it didn't matter how rich you were, how successful you were, if social media was around during the Holocaust, how many followers you had. If you were a Jew during the Holocaust, you were deemed worthless. Jews now, we have so much power. We are incredible human beings that can use our voice in so many different ways, shapes, and forms. And so I knew that I had to do everything that I can. And I know all of you in this room are also doing everything that you can in your own individual ways. And it comes with a lot of hate, but it also comes with a lot of love. I said this on the panel earlier, that don't be scared to speak out. Don't be scared to have conversations. Don't be scared to post. It's not all negative, and you can really impact so many people's lives. I've shared my content and the messages I've received from people saying, you know what, I never saw it that way. Thank you for sharing this. I did a Nova dance video. People thought it was crazy to do a dance video at the Nova site, but people went to that festival to dance. And that is what united all of them. And I went back to the Nova festival site with Nova survivors, and we danced again. And that video reached a whole different audience.
So Eylon, on that topic also, what do you say to young people who want to get involved, want to support Israel, but are afraid of losing friends, of speaking out?
I don't care. I don't care, because young people your age lost friends who fell in battle, so you can lose friends over a falling out over politics. If your Israeli brothers and sisters can face down Hamas in Gaza, you can face down the Hamas fangirls on your campus. If no one else is going to have these conversations with your peers unless it is you. This is it. This is on you. The adults are not coming to save you. No one else is going to have those difficult conversations. And you have to realize that this is your moment to rise up, to play a leadership role, and to make a genuine difference. What I tell students when I meet them, I say, you're not just Gen Z, you are Gen Zionist. And being a Zionist means standing up to the bullies. You don't let them call you names. You don't let them push you around. You don't let them make you be ashamed of who you are. You stand up to the bullies, because if you don't take down the bullies, they are only going to be more violent. Tomorrow night in New York City, I'm going to be debating Al Jazeera's Mehdi Hassan.
Yeah, Eylon is definitely not afraid in any way, definitely.
One-on-one, man-on-man, on stage live. And part of me is still telling myself this is a terrible, terrible mistake. And I'm taking a risk. I'm taking a risk. But when the invitation came through, I said, look, I've spent so long telling Jewish students, you need to stand up to the bullies, that if I chicken out, I'm a fraud. So enjoy the plenary tomorrow, and see you in New York.
We're coming to an end, but James, I have to ask you, have you found any effective ways to combat anti-Semitism on social media?
When it comes to social media, I've realized that there is about 10% of the population that is just never going to agree with me. And about 10% of the population, like a lot of you in this room, that will 100% agree with me. And frankly, I'm not speaking to them, and I'm not trying to speak to you. There's 80%, 70, 80%, the vast majority of people online, especially younger people, that just don't know what's going on, or don't care what's going on, or more likely, a bit of both. I do my best to create messaging that is truthful, that is honest, that is passionate, but not so polarizing that it's speaking only to people like people in this room that get it, that can understand the passion and the anger that I do have, but won't translate to the other people that are a little more on this side because their friends are tweeting and retweeting all eyes on Rafa. I'm doing my best to speak to those middle ground of people, which is the majority, and just give them information. When they see, thank you, when they see a familiar face, and that's a position we're in, when they see a familiar face, they grew up watching my TV show, or they still go and see me on tour, they may listen. They may go, wait a second, why is he speaking out? And even if they initially disagree, if they pay attention for long enough, or more importantly, if I keep posting for long enough, eventually it gets through. And I have seen the conversation shift, and this is what encourages me to keep going, from just hatred, negativity, death threats, a shit ton of watermelons, pardon my French, which is not very constructive or very helpful. But I've seen it shift to a conversation, where now, when some fans say, hey, I disagree with that, they're coming at it, at least in my comments, with a much more intelligent and respectful tone, and I love that and I encourage that. So at the very least, shoot for the conversation. Get the conversation started. Because if you're just trying to appeal to 10% on either side, you're not doing a whole lot of good.
So we have 2 more minutes left, but I want to ask the question that everybody wants to ask on each and every one of you in a short answer. I know it's hard, but we can make it this time. What is your tip for better engagement on social media? Like one tip that we would give.
Ooh, I feel like that's such a loaded question. I think it's a question everyone has. For me personally, what I've noticed is the more authentic I am to myself, like I feel like what you see on my social media truly is me. And I also have found unique ways to share this information. James has said this many times today. You have to share the same message many, many different times. So I feel that I'm sharing the same message in so many different ways. And like for instance, I've been doing these, I spoke about this earlier, doing these videos in public, where I go out in public and actually have real conversations with people. So not only is it an awesome social media video that gets shared around the world, I'm actually engaging with real people that most of them, you'd be so surprised, don't even know what happened on October 7th. How? Like, that's so crazy to me. A lot of them genuinely don't know. When I showed them pictures of the hostages, they didn't even know who they were. They've never seen them before. They never heard them before. So you gotta just keep going out there and keep trying to have that conversation in different ways, and I promise you it does make an impact. I know it's not as great as we all want it in here and as great as it should be, but it does make an impact. I'm telling you, the messages I do receive, the comments, they are real people that are being affected by this. Jews, non-Jews, non-Jews, pro-Israel, Israelis, so many different types of people around the world are getting affected by our social media content. So I would just keep sharing your truth. And don't ever engage. I never respond to a negative comment. I think that's something that's really important to say. I have never once responded to a negative comment. All I do is I keep educating, I keep sharing, and that is the way you respond.
James.
So it may be tough sometimes when it's a very passionate and very important topic like what we're talking about. But if nobody sees it, nobody stops to scroll, then it doesn't really matter, now does it? So hook, retain, reward. That is how I structure my content. Your first 1 to 3 seconds has to be interesting, has to be catching, has to be divisive to some degree. So whatever the video it is, go back and re-edit it to the first 3. People go, wait, what is this? And then maybe they'll pay attention. Hook, retain, reward.
Noah?
We're an educational program, so I think it's a lot about education and really not looking at what only you think, but create engagement and start the conversation. Because if we only talk about what we think and the other side thinks something else, we will never engage and we'll all look the other way. So really making that conversation.
Eylon?
If I can cheat by not answering the question, take it offline. Social media is not the real world. It's important to take the content that everyone here on the stage and the other influencers are making, and then not just hit share to your 300 Jewish friends. Learn the content, understand it, and then have a real conversation with the neighbor you are a bit scared to have the conversation with. Take it offline, we can start to change the real world.
The best answer is not even to a question that I've asked. Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a great time. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you very much.